What's up, fellow nerds? Phreak here. Teamfight Tactics patch 9.16 is coming out, and we're gonna talk about it. For frame of reference, I am a pretty firmly Diamond 2? I think I'm Diamond 2, actually. That's probably at the high end of my skill level, but I'm a mid-Diamond TFT player. I've stayed in Diamond for basically ever. I've managed to stick in Diamond 2 for a while. I'm not a Master Tier player. There are better players out there, but I'm better than the top 1%. So I'm up there, not the best. All right, so let's talk about what's going on in this one. New champions are coming out. Riot has said that they want the sort of maximum roster size to stay between 55 and 60. We were at 51 heading into this patch. The new champions coming in put us at 55. So the new state of the game is going to be what seems to be the low end of what they actually want, which is to say that they're not trying to make everything reliable. And I think it's a good thing, by the way, because what I have seen playing my games is it's pretty reliable to always get one of two comps you want. Because those units just keep showing up. There's only so many characters out there. And the slightly larger the pool gets, the more you'll have to mix and match. Where you're going to have to rely on 2-part synergies or 3-part synergies, and you just aren't going to get 6 Sork, or you're just not going to get 5 Shapeshifters, whatever it is. So that appeals to me. I like the idea of having to really heavily mix and match. So I like the roster growing. I'd be interested to see what a 60-person roster looks like. We're at 55 now. And we're at 55 with Hextech coming in. So Hextech does this. You throw a bomb at an enemy unit that has an item and disables all items, including that one, within a 1 or 2 hex radius for 8 seconds. So what this means is if let's say you're in a final boss scenario, you're one-on-one, and someone's playing, stacked Swain. You're like, I can never kill stacked Swain. He's magic immune and has Guardian Angel. Well, if you can Hextech bomb the guy and kill him in the first 8 seconds, no GA, no magic immunity, you popped off. Or 3-item Draven's running around wreaking havoc. Well, you throw in some Hextech units and you hope that you hit the Draven, and then that blows off. And he has to walk forward because he's not rapid fire cannon. Bloodthirst is not on. Gets hit with an Aurelian Soul Nuke once. Good things can happen for you. So it's a way to kill off or survive against someone who either got really good item RNG because they'd have more items than everyone else, or something else like, I don't know, their lockets pop up at the start and you just get screwed, or Zeke hits them at the start and you get screwed, or Kennan's always getting Brelonomicon ultimate with infinite mana, or this Karthus ult at the start because he has 2 Seraphs. Who knows, right? It's all the kind of things that can happen. So I think this is really interesting for that kind of dynamic. On the other side, right, if you have 2 big carries, or even if you're playing 1 big carry, right, if you're 3 static Shiv Ashe and there's no other items, Ashe will always get bombed and will never shoot Shiv for 8 seconds. Maybe you then want to spread out your Shivs, or if you have 2 carries, you have a big, 2-item Kennen with Morella's GA, and you have Rapid Fire, Bloodthirst, or Draven in the corner. They need to be far enough apart to not get hit by each other's Hextech bombs, right? Because only 1 bomb and it goes for only 1 unit. Maybe it means you need a Volibear in the bottom left corner with a Chain Vest just to soak up bombs 1 and 3 times. That, if we're in a Hextech heavy metagame, you're gonna need decoy units, right? So that's how that's gonna play out in general. It does seem that there's a lot of champs that ult early. Again, Brelonomicon Kennen being a really big one. Especially Brelonomicon GA Kennen, where people put in the front line. And frontline Morello GA Kennen is going to get Hextech bombed and is going to die before he ults. Well, at least before Brelonomicon goes off. He's going to die before GA goes off. So this really will serve to change things around a lot. They're adding Camille, who roots the enemy and then forces a taunt. So she basically tags a unit, clicks on a taunt. The unit can't dash away or anything else. So if it's a Rengar or a Lucian or whatever, or a Rek'Sai, they're not going to move around. Sometimes that can matter. Decent damage. When I looked at her stats on PvE, they were quite low. She is pretty frail, as you expect for a Blade Master. Her DPS, being a 1 cost, is not that high. Tankier than Fiora, less damage than her. Next up is Jayce, who begins in melee form, and then he will push in a knockback, go to ranged form, and play the rest of the fight from ranged. Gets extra attack speed for a while, does decent damage. Basically, he's an early shapeshifter, and he's Hextech. That sounds pretty interesting. We have Vi, who is a brawler that reaches back line, targets the furthest enemy, charges towards them, knocking aside and damaging every enemy along the way. When she gets there, she knocks her target up and damages them. Right, so knocks aside and damages. So I'm assuming this damage is the same for everything. Maybe it's not, but I'm assuming it is. This is pretty good damage output. Vi is a 3-cost brawler, so right, Warwick, Rek'Sai, Blitzcrank, Vi, Volibear, and then Chogath is your 6th brawler. Definitely can provide some early health. Again, pretty good Hextech unit. And the fact that she's backline access, right? Like, there's a lot of cases where you might always want to tech her in against a Draven or a Karthus or whatever, because she'll bomb the carry via Hextech and then dive them afterwards. And there's even a chance that I find that 3-cost units are you can 3-star them if they're not contested. It's not that hard. So 60 is a pretty good base damage for a nuke. She can really do some damage to backline. Then finally we have Jinx, who's another auto attack carry. It feels like really we only have 3 or 2 auto attack carries in the game right now. It's basically Ashe and it's basically Draven, and that's kind of it. No one else is really like, they win because their base DPS is high. Jinx is the gunslinger that's an auto attack DPS champion, right? Ashe was the ranger, Draven is a blade master. Jinx is the gunslinger version of this, where if you're getting a bunch of static shivs or rapid fire cannons or bloodthirsters or whatever, just raw attack damage items, and Jinx pops up, okay, well, now you can do the gunslinger version of this. I think it's kind of cool. So basically, if she scores a takedown, her first takedown is bonus attack speed. Second takedown pulls out rocket launcher, which makes her deal AoE damage, which is an explosion that covers 3 hexes total. I'm assuming it's 1 adjacent. I'm not sure exactly. Maybe it has smart targeting, tries to find 2 units. I'm not exactly certain, but it's a very substantial damage upgrade. So Jinx does not need mana, does not use mana. She's basically like Vayne in that regard, or Cassidy or someone else. Her base stats for DPS, last I checked, were pretty solid. And their kind of goal with her is like, okay, well, Ashe is good DPS and she stuns things. Draven is good DPS, but he's a single target character. And Jinx is good DPS and she does AoE damage and cleans out the rest of the squad. So there's kind of like different looks for these carries. I think it looks pretty interesting. Looks pretty cool. This will get you... this allows you to get to 6 Gunslinger when you find Misfortune, for example. But also allows you to drop Lucian earlier on if you want to just sit on 4 Gunslingers or something like that. Or drop, gang Graves if you don't care about pirates or something, right? So, who knows, but this is going to be interesting. That said, further down to the patch, there's a really spicy change that's going to make Gunslingers really exciting, and Jinx might be support as a result. Okay, so matchmaking, which is in-game matchmaking. Essentially, from what I have seen, and this might be out of date and wrong, it should be literally impossible when there are more than 5 players to rematch someone, including a ghost, during a stage. It should be literally impossible. At exactly 5 players, there is a very small, 1%-ish chance that it happens at all. Then, of course, we're down to 4 players. We only have 3 opponents. Of course, you must rematch them, right? Of course. And when you're down to 3 players, one of you has to get the ghost, so of course. But it's trying to prevent streaky scenarios where you'd face the exact same 2 or more times in a row. So to be fair, I might have misspoke. This says in a row. I was saying during a stage. I should retcon that. Not during a stage, but in a row, apparently the odds are incredibly, incredibly low in a 5-person lobby. But otherwise, outside of obvious things like a one-on-one, where of course you're rematching, you won't hit the same person twice in a row. You won't hit ghosts twice in a row. That will help. I don't believe it says... and that's interesting, actually, by the way, is that when you're in a 3-player lobby, it means that now your opponents can be, I believe, deterministic. I'm 2nd place. I just played 1st place. Okay, well, I have to play 3rd place next. So I'm going to position and tech in units for that exact matchup. That to me is interesting. And then one of the, I either play 3rd place or a ghost, 1st place, 3rd place or a ghost. 3rd place got to play a ghost and now, has to play 1 or 2. I think it's interesting, right? So that's a good change. That seems cool. So playing the same thing twice in a row should happen almost never. That's cool. They're doing an URF overtime mode where at 30 seconds we hit overtime, lasts for 15, so rounds are 45 seconds long at most. I think it's still end in draws, but huge damage increase, can't heal as much, hope things will die. Cool. I think it's interesting. The ranked lobby is going to look a bit different in that you can now straight demote. You will skip master, do not pass go, do not collect $200. Get back in a dime where you belong, scrub. I'm actually curious how many people are going to get kicked out of Master Challenger as a result, because keep in mind, it was possible to be a GM player, lose to 0, lose at 0, then win a game and get back to 7 LP, and as long as you didn't lose twice in a row, you could never demote. I am curious now over the next, like, 3 weeks, how much smaller Challenger Grandmaster Master is going to be as a result. I don't know the answer to that. It might not be much, but I'm very curious. Definitely curious. Also, another systems change, player damage is different. There were some changes in the last major patch, right, that 2-star 3 drops and then 4 and 5 drops didn't do as much damage. This is now different in sort of base damage, which is basically like how much damage did the enemy little legend do to you. So stage 1 and 2 is literally the creep rounds and all the rounds before Krugs. And these are all the rounds after Krugs and before the end of Raptors. Like the entirety of mid game is the exact same. Okay, so you are literally going to take, if you lose streak, you take 5 less damage for your 5 PvP battles before Krugs. 5 less damage if you lose streak the whole way through. Mid game is entirely the same. Then once you clear Raptors and you're setting up for the first dragon / everything else after Raptors, now damage is up. Now it's even more important that you level up after Raptors and get your frickin' comp online, because if you lose streak this entire stuff, you're taking 5 more damage than before. After you clear the first dragon, it's now 4 base damage. After you clear Rift Herald, it's 5 base damage. So these are light touches. They really, really are, right? Because if you lose streak everything before Krugs, it's 5 to, assuming you beat the freaking lane minions, because don't be nitty, you should beat the lane minions. 5 total damage can be taken if you lose streak through that, which really does mean a little bit, right? 5 damage is not that trivial, and so if you really don't hit anything, you are less screwed in the early game, and then the entire mid game is the same as it was before, and then once you're after Raptors, look, it's up to you being good at that point. So I think it's actually pretty good. This is really going to help people in the early game if they get unlucky. Next up, there's a bunch of changes to various brawlers and stuff. So brawlers, basically Brawler 4 is weaker, right? Because this is Brawler 2, this is Brawler 4, and then Brawler 6 didn't exist yet, but it does now. Because Vi exists. So this is a change that literally could not have been useful. This never could have mattered. Of course, now it does. And anyway, basically, Brawler 4 is slightly weaker. Now, I don't think Brawler 4 is that important. I think Brawler 4 existed but wasn't that important to chase. Brawler 6, I think, is kind of similarly not that important to chase. But hey, we'll see. Maybe it's fine. But it means you have to run Warwick and Volibear, which sometimes you don't want to do. That's all. I'm forgetting something. Cho, Rek'Sai, Vi, and then I'm forgetting. Oh, Blitzcrank. Right. Anyway, moving on. Next up is a very interesting change, a redesign of the Demon Trait bonus. This is actually a really, really big deal. So it is no longer full mana pool mana burn, and I believe, I could be wrong, but I was watching Saint stream last night on PvE, and I didn't see damage numbers from the Demon Burn. Now, maybe it still does 20 true damage from the 20 mana you burn. That's still possible. I didn't see the numbers, so I'm not sure which one it is. Either way, the amount of mana burned is so much less. It is so much less mana burned. It's really, really, really a lot less. Generally speaking, unless you are playing 6 demons, they're all hitting the same character. Like, keep in mind, right, this is actually 8 mana per auto attack. Demons burn 8 mana per auto attack, which basically means they burn the mana they donate by hitting you. So demons are essentially net neutral in mana generation. Okay, that's fine. But what they do get is a 40% chance to gain 15, 30, or 45 mana to themselves, right? And of course, 0.4 times 15 is 8? 6. It's 6. So basically this means that demons gain 6, 12, 18 mana per attack. Wait, am I doing this numbers wrong? No, yeah. 6, 12, 18 mana per attack. Which essentially makes demon bonus the same as sorcerer, really, right? Because sorcerers gain double mana on attacks, which means like Brand and Karthus and Anivia gain 20 mana per auto, whereas like, I don't know, Varus would normally, without this, gain like 9. So Demon is basically Sorcerer, and is net neutral in providing mana to what they hit. This is interesting, right? Now it means that if you're playing... So it probably means, by the way, that like Demon is probably maybe the best item in the game, that Darken, right? Spatula plus mana, because it means that, you know, you're a Brand who gains 20 mana per auto and also gains an expected value of 12 more mana per auto. So Brand is going to ult a lot, right? Anyone who already really, really wants to get their spells out, like Brand's going to ult a lot, Varus is going to ult a lot, Aatrox is going to ult a lot, giving Demon buff to Karthus, he's going to ult a lot. Like, there's a lot of really important, really, really big mana gains here. This is really substantial. I know everyone's going to be trying Demon in the new patch, and I think it's going to be right to do this because I think Demon is very, very strong. Again, less so because of the mana prevention, right? Straight up Demons just burn on average 8 mana per auto. It's not that big of a deal. Again, they're going to go roughly mana neutral on their opponents. It's getting your spells off more often. That's going to be a big deal. So carry Aatrox, carry Brand, making Karthus a carry, giving Aurelion Soul Darken. All that stuff's going to be really, really valuable to get their ults off more often. Darken is going to be a better mana generation tool than Static Shiv. It's probably better than Seraph's Embrace. Actually, I'm pretty sure. So outside of like Akali specifically, or champions who like actually just wanted the exact 20 mana so they can move on with their lives, for any like a reasonably large mana pool champion, I think Darken is strictly better than Seraph's, as long as you're running like 1 or 3 other demons. Pretty sure on that. Next up is Ninja, getting another 10 attack damage and ability power from before. So I did actually run some numbers, and we'll get into those later on. We'll tab over to the Google Sheet a little bit later, and I'll start talking about the math that I ran out for this, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Noble getting a 10 arm and MR buff as well, which is probably good. I think they need it. Want to point out, every champion has exactly 20 base magic resist, and outside of putting items on them, it's not going any higher. This is one of the only reliable ways of actually surviving mage comps. And one thing I want to point out is there were no 5 drops added to this patch, which means Kayle is just as likely as before. Leona is slightly less likely, but you probably still find her at some point. Getting your whole team from 20 to 90 magic resist is a very substantial upgrade in durability. So if you are really getting run over by Aatrox or Karthus or Aurelion Soul or whatever, at least as far as what I can see, we are in a very mage-heavy metagame in high elo, which means chasing nobles is a pretty good way to like find your way into the end of the game, because I think that really can happen here. And there's more changes that also make noble good that we'll go over a little bit later. Next up, the change that I really, really wanted to see, and I'm glad this is happening. This is exactly the change I wanted to see. The 3 Sork bonus going from 45 to 40 ability power. Now, in my time streaming, I've seen a lot of people confused by this. The Sork bonus is global. If you get 3 Sorks, all 8 units in your comp all got 45 ability power. You should probably have chased 3 Sork literally every game. Pretty much. Because most units benefit from ability power. 3 Sork was absurdly strong. It should have been chased every single game. Now, 5 AP is not massive, but there are some nerfs to the other sorcerers in this patch, and it's going to have an effect. It also means that the option to go to 6 Sork has now a bigger payoff. Instead of giving you 55 AP, it's 60 AP. You are more likely to, if you are 3 Sork, try to get to 6 because the difference is larger, the payoff is larger. That's valuable. 3 Sork is still going to be really, really common. There's probably going to be at least 4 players per high elo lobby playing at least 3 Sork, but good to see the nerf all the same. Another further buff to Wild. It still feels to me, and maybe this changes here, that, look, if you get 2 Wild early on, that's cool, You know, sometimes it's a really nice link. Like if you're playing a Rengar comp, you want to keep Warwick in because he's your other wild, and you play wild Brawler Assassin, and hey, you know, Rengar getting attack speed is nice. Or, you know, we hit 2-star Ahri pretty early on, and I want to keep her in, so I guess you know, I'm okay running a level 1 Rengar just to like give Ahri some more attack speed because getting her second ult off is pretty valuable. That kind of stuff is there. And now you're even more likely to just like, you know what, let's play that second wild, let's invest in Ahri, or let's invest in Rengar. Or, you know what, actually I hit 2-star Gnar with Guardian Angel. Yeah, you know what, let's keep Ahri in so that we can keep Gnar's attack speed up, because Gnar's pretty good auto attack damage. Like, that kind of stuff is fine. 4 wild has felt like it's almost always a trap, because you've either got to find 2-star Gnar, which is hard to do, you've got to keep Warwick, or you've got to keep Rengar when you're probably not assassins. Like, it's pretty constraining to play 4 wild. Like, you've got to keep Nidalee in or something. Like, it's pretty bad. Outside of like getting the exact Kismet comp of I've perfectly found, you know, 4 wild shapeshifter Sork and Ahri was really good. Like, chasing 4 wild has felt like a trap. This now you're maybe more likely to take a bad piece just to get that wild bonus in, because when you are late game and you've got 8 units or maybe even 9 units, you got lucky and you got Force of Nature or something. Okay, 60% global attack speed if your fight's long enough, that's pretty reasonable. And maybe that works out. Maybe it's worth keeping Nidalee as a result, but it's still pretty rough. Next up, we go to the actual champion changes. Elise is getting 50 health, and her Spiderling attack speed is going up by 1/6. Now, from the games that I have played, it hasn't felt like Spiderlings actually have 50 raw attack damage. It feels like they do close to 0 when I'm against like basic 2 knight enemies. And it's like I hit, you know, Garen with 40 armor and 2 knight buff, and it's like, okay, yeah, he should, you know, he has 140% HP, so like it's actually only doing like 30 damage per hit, but it feels like they're doing basically no damage, so I'm not sure they really do 50 damage per hit, but let's say they do. Let's just kind of move on from there. At least it's 11% more health, and sure, her Spiderlings have 17% more damage. Now that's not garbage. And one of the big things really is the fact that Elise is a demon, and just by hitting Demon 2, she has like the full mana burn, right? She's back to being mana neutral on her opponents, and I mean, Demon Shapeshifter is really, really valuable. Because all you care about is shapeshifting, and a 40% chance to gain 15 mana, right? Getting 6 mana per auto on average. You know, now she might transform in time. She might actually get her Spiderlings out. She might be useful. There's a certain amount of power that can exist where you get over the hump, and Elise is valuable. I'm not sure if we're really there yet, but this is actually a pretty meaningful bump in usefulness. Next up is Kha'Zix getting his non-isolated Q damage cut by 0.50/100. Here's the damage there, 17 to 22%. It matters. It exists. ISO Qs are still very, very, very good, but it's one of several Void units getting nerfed this patch. Basically, the 2 damage-dealing Void units getting nerfed this patch, so cool stuff there. A lot of champions are going to have this bug fix where they no longer cast their ability when it was going to whiff at the start. If they're not in range at the start of the cast, they're not going to cast, right? So if he last hits a Garen, he won't just like smack the corpse. He'll turn, look at Elise, hit her. So that's a good change. There's a lot of this going on in this patch, which is really, really good. There's going to be a really, really good upgrade in general usability. And I think a lot of units were really overlooked because of things like this. There are a lot of low-tier units with small AoE spells that just didn't do a whole lot that... they're going to get a really big power up because of things like this. This is going to be pretty interesting. There's a real chance that we have a substantially shifted metagame because of just simple bug fixes like these. Next up is Nidalee, who now guarantees that she heals the second when she transforms. She used to only heal herself if she was the lowest. Now she actually seeks the second unit. This is part of why people didn't play Nidalee. Again, I still don't think Nidalee is all that good. Once you get into mid to late game, I don't think Wild's that good. I think Shapeshifter is sometimes good, but hard to get online. So maybe she's fine now, but we'll see what happens here. The better heal definitely makes you want to keep her a bit more often. Next up is Vayne, who's getting a small rework. Her attack speed is going back down, and instead her ability damage is going up. Now, what's interesting, this is a strict nerf to Bronze Vayne. And I have the numbers here. So this is Vayne, and the actual median level 1 health of a champion is, I think, 640 or something like that. And unless I did my math wrong, I don't believe I did, every 2-star unit has 80% more health, which means the average 2-star unit, the mean 2-star unit in TFT has 1100 health. So that's the number that I chose right here. We're going to hit the complete mean level 2 unit. So Vayne's basic DPS, of course, is down by 7% because her attack speed went down by 7%, so duh. But if we're using Silver Bolts and returning Silver Bolts reliably, then we're this. Against the median unit in the game, she's, of course, worse at Bronze. We knew that. Her DPS is down by about 2 to 3. She makes up for the attack speed loss in Silver Bolt damage here. And then because it further scales, Gold Vayne is even better to the tune of about 1%. Now, there's a few caveats here. One is Silver Bolts does not always trigger. Keep in mind, I'm basically doing the math here as though Silver Bolts did 1/3 the damage and applied on every auto attack. That is not realistic. She will always have situations where she, either gets hit twice, either gets hit 5 times, either gets 4 times. That situation will exist plenty of times, and she will not do the full passive damage. The other part, though, that goes the other direction with this one, is it deals true damage. The mean armor in this game is 25. There's a lot of units with only 20 armor, but you have things like Braum and Leona. Knights have 40 kind of down the line. Guardians exist, Knight bonus exists, Noble bonus exists, Braum shield exists. There's all Thornmail, etc. There's all kinds of things that exist that provide either bonus armor or bonus health that further elevates Silver Bolts. Now, I don't know which factor is stronger. It really depends on the lobbies that you're in, right? Basic Poppy does have more health than 1100 at 2-star, but I might only hit Poppy 8 times and trigger Silver Bolts twice in 8 auto attacks. So, end of the day, it does mean that pushing to Gold Vayne is more valuable. That's the thing that matters. Gold Vayne is more valuable. This is a very, very big damage bump. 16% is non-trivial. It means, by the way, that AP on Vayne is more important. So if you go Rageblade Vayne, AP multiplies this ability. So now 2 Rageblade Vayne is more valuable. That can be really useful. And that's really a consideration, I think, is getting to gold tier double Rageblade Vayne is going to be an absolute menace. Maybe we get there. Small nerf to Braum of 100 health. Here you go. 13% down. I definitely thought that Braum was a very good one-of unit. You could stack him with like Warmog's Ionic Spark or Warmog's Thornbill, and he could actually do a lot of carrying by himself. Yes, we were in a very mage-heavy metagame in high elo, but that wasn't everyone's games. Yeah, sure, people play mages in Diamond doesn't mean people aren't all playing rangers and gunslingers in gold, right? So the game should be balanced for everyone, of course. It should be useful for everyone. I think Braum was definitely doing a lot of stuff. It felt like rangers were really, really common in most elos, and there are still some ranger players in Diamond Plus as well. So I think this is fine. I think Braum was definitely overtuned, especially for a 2-drop, right? Lissandra total mana required to cast her ability down to 125, and I believe her flat mana is staying at 50, so her first ult is coming out early. Lissandra only needs to generate 75 mana to get a targeted stun out, and it does pretty reasonable damage. This is meaningful. This is definitely meaningful. I think people should be and keep in mind that then her second stun also takes 25 less mana. There's a decent chance that Lissandra actually gets 2 ults off. And the damage is not complete garbage. It got buffed to be, kind of okay. This is a pretty big deal. Lissandra is quickly becoming not the tax on elementalists, but simply around. That's kind of cool stuff. Lulu getting her ult nerfed by 0.75, 150 health. Pretty big hit here. Here it is. 23% less health. Keep in mind that rank 2 and 3 hit 2 and 3 targets. Definitely pretty big there. Keep in mind she's one of these sorcerers that are getting nerfed as Sorks were kind of overpowered. Lulu was a really good keystone of that. Keep in mind it was very easy to get 3 Sork and 3 Yordle. And basically relying on Lulu, Kennen, Veigar if you had to, but Poppy, and just like playing those 3 units every game and then just running any other 2 swords together, like TF and Aurelion Soul or whatever, was very, very, very strong and very, very, very frequent. So good to see Lulu nerfs. Not a huge change to Lulu 2, but a really big hit to Lulu 3. Next up is Zed, who's getting some strict buffs. We felt like assassins were kind of gone, I guess. He's getting more flat HP, he's getting higher base attack speed, and he's getting more damage ranking on his ability. And keep in mind, ninjas also got buffed. So here is the Zed table, right? Here is Zed. Okay, 10% more health. Cool, easy. His base DPS through the attack speed buff and the extra 10 attack damage on ninja buff is up 18 to 12% at 1 ninja and 16 to 11% at 4 ninja. This is a very meaningful DPS increase. These are very good DPS numbers, by the way. 81 is a really, really high DPS. I believe I did the math right. This is a lot of DPS. This is a lot of damage. This is really, really meaningful. I mean, going up to even if it's only the 1 ninja, 199 DPS is a lot. That's really substantial. Carry ninjas should be a really big deal here. And what's nice is they're basically buffing the ninjas that aren't Kennen to say, hey, if you like running Kennen, that's cool, but ninja buff is so good. Have you thought about Zed? Well, you can't run them both, so maybe? Or actually going 4 ninja, which we haven't seen in a very long time, really. And running ninja assassin, ninja elementals, or both, which is possible, right? 4 ninjas plus 2 elementalists plus 1 assassin. Hey, you're in there. That's only 7 units. That kind of stuff looks pretty exciting. That's kind of cool stuff for me. His spell, of course, is more damage as well, right? So part of this, because the base ability to get me more damage, here's the ninja buff. It's 7% more damage. As the rank up comes in, it's 34% more damage, really substantial there. Similar numbers for 4 ninja as well. Really, really big stuff. Now, one thing I will say is the 4 ninja buff is not very big. It's not like you're getting, like, what is it, like 60 attack damage and ability power? Sorry, 50. You're getting 50 attack damage and ability power. That only goes up by 20 when you go to Ninja 2. Or I guess Ninja 4, technically. So you're not really that incentivized to go Ninja 4. Because Ninja 2 is already a lot of the power on that unit. But the buff is so good, if you do want to get all 4 ninjas out there, then that could feel pretty nice. Kennen getting 10 attack damage, 10 ability power. Yeah, it does affect him. Yeah, it does matter. Yes, he's, of course, strictly stronger here. But in general, it's a much bigger buff to Zed, obviously. And that means that you maybe really want to start considering playing Zed in there. 2 or 3 champs getting assists as well. Aatrox no longer whiffs his ult when no one's in range when he presses Q. Big deal. Evelyn, same thing. Also, Priot has actually attacking what she's attacking. That's pretty nice as well. Katarina also no longer does the kind of stuff, which means if you want to stack Katarina with 100 mana, like if you're going, Seraph's Demon Shiv or whatever, she won't spin until she jumps, and then she'll wipe the team and she'll get the full duration out of it. Also, getting a raw 15 attack damage is a lot, of course, but she actually needed it. Katarina has very, very low health, very low durability overall. And Katarina's DPS, I mean, look at this. This is her DPS. With the buff, it's 42 to 152. That's fine, but this puts her on par with the other assassins of her cost. And keep in mind, like, right up here is Zed, who has literally double. 76 to 117, 150, 199. Like, okay, it's not double anymore, but, like, it's still not close. And again, you look at champions like Rengar, you look at champions Akali is just obviously very, very good overall, but like this puts Katarina, I think, where she should be on DPS. Katarina now has actual, like, fair for an assassin DPS. And keep in mind that, like, those crits, right? If you get the crit and she does triple damage of, not 65, but you can even, predictably double that. She's about, like, what, about 115 in base AD, and if she does triple that, it's 300. Starting to get pretty meaningful. Her crits are actually going to start mattering. That's good stuff. So, Katarina getting on board finally. Good stuff. Kennen no longer whiffs his ultimate either, which is nice. So basically, a lot of this, by the way, is to basically make rapid fire cannon also won't break these champions as much. You probably still don't want rapid fire cannon on them, but at least they won't ult nothing. Shyvana AI is better. That's kind of nice as well. So, like, there's a lot of really nice AI upgrades, which I'm really happy about. Just the champions feeling more fluid, doing the jobs a bit better. That's going to feel generally really quite good. I'm just really happy about. So here's Akali getting 10 attack damage. Right, buffs are not nearly as big as Zed's, who gained base attack speed. She gets 10 AD as well as she gets 10 AD from Ninja. So here's the DPS. Right, about 50% more damage in all cases. The ability, of course, doing 7 to 6% more damage is exactly what you expect. With the 10 AP coming in, exact same numbers, by the way, for Kennen. 6, 7% more ability damage. Not huge, just kind of exists. So, again, more reason to think about maybe playing Akali. 250 DPS, quite high. 251 DPS at rank 3 is a lot. You look up at Zed, 213. That's not even that far off, right? 215, 251. The spells, 850 to 680. Yes, Akali's can crit. Yes, Akali's cost less mana. But, you're seeing these numbers, and it's like, actually, I'm kind of okay running Zed here, right? And maybe playing carry Zed is okay. So that's kind of exciting. Next up, really big changes to Brand here. So Brand is getting 50 to 100 more damage on the ability. The first ult comes 25 mana sooner. The second ult comes 25 mana later. And the third ult comes 25 mana later as well. So basically, 2 ult Brand is untouched. And in fact, Shojin Brand is better, essentially, because you're getting more off the Shojin, so 2 ult Brand is actually better. Shojin 2 ult Brand is better than old Shojin 2 ult Brand. First ult's obviously just better straight up, and the damage is higher. So Brand is going to become a much bigger carry. Here's the Brand damage, and I thought Brand was already pretty fine. Now I know people mostly liked Aurelion Sol over Brand. They liked Karthus over Brand. They generally had been falling off Elementalists somewhat, and that's fair. That's maybe reasonable. And to be fair, with 3 Sork getting nerfed, maybe they're just slightly buffing Elementalists because Sork's getting played in 6 Sork, but Elementals are not getting played in 6 Sork. So, I can see that logic for there as well, but I thought Brand was generally playable. But definitely stronger champion now. 50 to 100 damage is not trivial. It basically more than makes up for losing 3 Sork, or losing 5 AP on 3 Sork. I will also say that Brand is, again, Demon. Getting a second Demon somewhere is going to be really valuable to get Brand to ult even more frequently, and Brand might be belting out spells. I can easily see a 6 Demon comp where you got to find, a frontline somewhere because Aatrox Morgana isn't really that, but just having Brand just gain absurd mana, right? Just imagine Rapid Fire Cannon, Rageblade Brand with 6 Demon. He's gonna generate so much mana and ult so often. I think it's really interesting, right? I can really see attack speed Demon builds really being valuable here. Next up, some required nerfs to Chogath, and they are very big ones. The best comp in the game was 3 Sork Void Brawler. If you get to 6 Sork, great, but that was a luxury. But playing 3 Sork, 2-item Chogath with Void bonus, he would just absolutely evaporate entire teams, right? This guy would have 80 to 100 ability power. It would all be true damage. He would do 1,000 true damage to the entire back line. Then he'd be Morello's burned. It was just some absurd stuff. You would get really, really, really wrecked. So really substantial damage cuts to Chogath. Really, really substantial. Yeah, 30% off. Truly meaningful. And keep in mind, 3 Sork also got nerfed, so it's another 5-ish% off that, slightly less than 5%. Really huge nerf to that strategy. Keep in mind also, 4 Brawler got nerfed by 100 health, which is trivial, but it exists. I don't think that needed to happen. Whatever. Really, really big hits there. Really, really big. So Cho is going to be a lot less contested. I think you can still run Void Brawler, by the way, and even run 3 Sork. Now, Cho's going to do 30% less damage, but people aren't going to take all the Rek'Sais and Cho'Gaths anymore, so I think you should be legit willing to still play the exact same comp. Yes, your primary carry does 30% less damage. You should still be willing to play it. I don't think it's been nerfed out of viability. I think it's been love tapped in a lot of places, and Cho himself got nerfed, and I think importantly so. Uncontested Cho means you get all the Chos. If you play 2 silver Cho'Gaths because you couldn't have before, but now you can, you're rolling in it. This is not a big enough nerf to make the comp unviable. That's how I feel anyway. Next up, Karthus is getting, I think, a pretty good nerf. It still takes 85 mana to get the first ultimate, which is fine. It means build double Seraphs and auto attack once, and there you go. But now the climb to the second ult is a lot bigger, and that's really, really good. I really love the base mana, max mana system to say, okay, look, these units need to get their spells off to be useful. Let's get them starting mana. But hey, this ult's so good, back to 125 for you. I think it's completely good, completely reasonable. Let's keep having that happen. Good times here. Now you want to consider Shojin Karthus. Now Seraphs is only 20 of 125 instead of 20 of 85 for the second ult, right? That kind of stuff. Keep in mind, Karthus generates 20 mana per auto attack. So straight up, this is 2 more auto attacks between ults. And his base attack speed's like 0.7, 0.75, something around there. So it's like a solid like 3-4 seconds. Okay, about 3 seconds between ults. An extra 3 seconds between ults is a lot. 3 seconds for the rest of your comp through everything else. That's really meaningful. As long as his first ult didn't kill your entire team, which hopefully it wouldn't do. Kayle loses 9% of her attack speed. Sure. I mean, she was definitely a little bit egregious. You would give her a Rage Blade or a Shojin or whatever, and she would get her first ult, and then she would just like whip out those auto attacks. The second ult will come out. I think it's definitely good. I think Karthus and Kayle were definitely the 2 best 5 drops in the game. I think Swain required really special Edmization and being 2-star. I think Yasuo required being in certain comps and was just, like, he was fine, like, he was good, but I don't think he auto-won any fights the way that Karthus and Kayle would, so I think it's correct that these are the 5 drops that are getting nerfed. Misfortune, really, really nice buffs here, and this helps you live the 6 gunslinger dream, of course, is that she's more reliably going to ult, and her ult's actually quite good. I've played games with like Morella Namacon Misfortune, and it feels really good. Like, if you can get to 2-star MF, she does some really nice stuff. There's some really good damage output there. Her also base auto attack DPS is quite good as well, and 2-star MF was actually a pretty solid auto attacker, but she just sits there in channels for so long that you didn't love it. But yeah, ulting every 75 mana now is really, really... I mean, double Seraphs or Seraph's Demon means she starts the game ulting. Like, this is not that hard to get. This is really not hard to get. It's 3 mana crystals and a spatula. That's not that hard. You can have MF start every fight ulting, and it's not difficult. I can easily see hunt for sapphire crystals, hunt for level 2 MF being a dominant strategy, a dominant S tier strategy. Like this, like I think her ult truly is not garbage, and this is a hugely important mana breakpoint. This could be absolutely massive. Enough health till she rises a little bit more. That's cool. And by the way, if we do get into a Misfortune Gunslinger metagame, Night bonus goes way up in value because Night bonus is flat damage reduction per tick of damage, which, by the way, MF does a lot of ticks of damage. We might be easily seeing heavy Night Sork or Dragon to like survive MF ults and go back. And I don't know, maybe MF really is not the dominant strategy, but I can easily see this happening. Also keep in mind that when you play 3 out of MF and you get Hextech Bond, we're back to that at the beginning of the video, she doesn't ult the start anymore. And oh golly, is that interesting. Very interesting. More things happening. Hush has been reworked, and I think in a good way. It is a 33% chance to prevent the champ from gaining mana for 4 seconds. Now keep in mind, the average attack rate is roughly 2 autos every 3 seconds, which means you're going to get 3.5 autos every 4. Actually, that's not true. So it's not 3.5. It's almost 3 autos every 4, which means Hush should, on average, allow mana generation sometimes. Now, it should prevent mana generation on the hit them and they hit you end, right? This is going to be good against all those demon comps that like are trying to generate tons of mana, and you're like, no, I have 6 Gunslinger Hush. You can't. Because they don't generate any mana. It's not about the silence. So like then the mana lock has to fall off, and then they have to see if they're still in a state where they can gain mana. So this is, I would say, stronger. This is a stronger thing. And the reason why is if they were at max mana, they would cast their ability anyway. Hush wouldn't stop them. But now what it does is it says, well, you were at 50 of 100 mana. You're not getting up to 100 of 100. You're staying at 50 of 100. So you're essentially still silenced. It's a better effect, essentially. It's a better effect, but the tuning is less aggressive. The effect is better. The tuning is less aggressive. I also think that the effect is probably also easier to understand, right? You still get the bubble over your head or whatever else, but you will never see a unit with a full mana bar not casting spells, which I think is a positive. It helps mana bars mean what they mean. I think that's a good thing. So I think this is a better design. The tuning seems very good. I think the effect is arguably stronger. I think we're going to see a lot of Hush this patch. But a cool change overall. Infinity Edge adds another 50% flat crit damage. So instead of you doing 3x, you do 3.5x crit damage. This is a very good item on someone like Rengar, for example. Or any other rapid fire cannon user, because it's now a bigger source of damage here, this Infinity Edge. This seems like a cool thing. I dig this. I think it's very good. I do want to see, right, unused items get buffed. Ionic Spark is going to do 1/6 less damage, but now stacks. I can totally see us heading into a very tank-heavy Ionic Spark spam metagame. I can see that existing. Maybe it won't, but I'm definitely curious to see what 5 Ionic Sparks looks like. Now, you're not always going to get a bunch of needlessly large rods and Negatron cloaks, but if you do, I'm going to be totally fine playing 3 Ionic Spark Brand, 3 Ionic Spark Cannons, being like, well, as long as they stay alive. So we'll see. Maybe the counter is everyone plays Vayne and Kassadin now. I don't know, probably not. But like, Lucian's going to kill himself a lot. I really want to, yeah. And the thing is, again, this is only better in a world where you'd want to build 2 Ionic Sparks, right? We might not be in that world, which means if you don't want to build 2, you don't really want to build 1 anymore, because 1 is way weaker. So I'm very curious what this ends up looking like down the line. I mean, we'll see. We'll see. I'm curious. Might be very good. It's true damage. It's very valuable. Locket getting a much needed buff, lasts 2 more seconds. This needed to happen. Locket was definitely crap. Cool to see this happening. I think this is really, really positive. What's also interesting is Ionic Spark and Locket got buffed and Morelos got nerfed. So now your use for your needlessly large rods is much more spread out. Assuming you want to build multiple sparks, assuming you want to build Locket, you are less likely to build Morellonomicon. We'll get into that in a little bit. But yeah, Locket definitely was too weak. 6 seconds is probably long enough to get some value now, finally. I don't know if it's good enough yet. I'm not sure I'm willing to like immediately go try it in ranked and feel good about it, but good to see it going in the right direction at the very least. Morellonomicon getting a very big change. Now, I think that this is a nerf to the item. And it's a nerf to the item enough that people are going to build less Morellonomicons. There's a lot going on here. Okay, there's a lot to unpack. Because before we get into this, there's one more patch note that didn't make it into this version of the notes, but it exists. Guardian Angel is being nerfed from 800 health to 500 health. So, it'll still revive. You'll still get to gain mana. Cannon Ult will still channel through the revive, all that stuff. That's still going to exist. But it's getting nerfed from 800 to 500 health. That's a big change. It's also going to properly cleanse Grievous Wounds. So there's 3 factors here, right? So 1, GA was overpowered, and one of the only ways to beat GA was Morellonomicon. Well, now GA is less overpowered, and it's not countered by Morellonomicon. So if GA was dictating Morelos, well, GA is no longer dictating Morelos because Morelos can't do anything with GA. And the final factor is Morelos does a lot less damage. Ultimately does a lot less damage. Either you would recast your spell and you hit them again, or just simply the fact that you're doing less damage per second with the Morelos means things are dying slower. Which means that even if, it was going to be a full 30-second fight, the units that you killed with the Morelos didn't die as fast, they're going to do more things. Which means we have now Morelos is further pushed into the item that you actually build to stop healing, not to just deal free damage. Very, very big change. You now build Morelos for the 10 seconds of healing reduction a bit more than you build it for the damage output. Because this was 4% max HP per second, it's now 2% max HP per second. That ain't much. That ain't much. Red buff is being normalized as well. So now red buff, by the way, also red buff is as good as Morelos. So now if you have a red buff, you don't build Morelos. you're more likely to build red buff. I would say that red buff is generally speaking buffed in this case. That the DPS barely went down, but the duration went up a whole lot. But also worth noting, right, that if you're building red buff on Tristana with, 4 gunslingers and she's hitting 3 targets and applying buffs to all 3 targets, she was doing that all fight long, right? Like, red buff is arguably not buffed in the sense that Tristana just kept autoing and kept reapplying red buff, and so the duration never mattered. The DPS is down slightly, right? It's down from, 2.5% to 2% max health per second. Technically that matters, but it's arguably just weaker. In a lot of cases, it's arguably just weaker. So you're going to build less red buffs. You're going to build less Morellos. Your Morello's users are actually different users now, right? Because if you were 10 seconds between spells, you now get the full damage burns. Now you're kind of more okay with, champions who don't get to ult nearly as often. But you now buy them for the healing reduction. This is interesting. Redemption heal's going up, right? And again, if we're in a state where we're building less Morellos and less red buffs, redemption is more likely to be useful. Because you should be building less Morellos. You should be building less red buffs. You were already reapplying this all the time. You were already reapplying this every time with gunslingers. So, right, less damage output. Straight up, less damage output. The heal is a lot bigger. Redemption maybe is going to start pulling your ruby crystals or pulling your sapphire crystals or your giant's belts and tears, obviously. But this is meaningful. Static Shiv. Instead of 4 targets for 90 damage, 3 targets for 100 damage. So it's less overall damage. It is now less countered by Night Buff a little bit, but more overall, or sorry, less overall damage output, right? 360 becomes 300. I never remember if a bounce includes the initial target. I never remember that. I don't know if it means 4 targets or 4 beyond the first, but either way, if it is, it's 450 becomes 400, or it's 360 becomes 300. Either way, it's still a nerf. So, slight touch to Rangers. Again, build less shivs. Use your recurve for other things. Use your mana crystals for other things. Warmogs is capped on Dragon, basically. Okay, fine. GA, tooltip updated to perfect functionality. Does not interrupt abilities or remove positive buffs. Is now properly removes grievous wounds and resurrects properly. The question is, though, Guardian Angel still removes, or at least it did today, it removed Volibear Ultimate and it removes Shapeshift. So if that's getting reverted, that's interesting. That's a pretty big deal because now I care about GA on Volibear. But again, it's getting nerfed to 500 health here on GA. That's going to be a big deal. Also, in rare instances, it's now possible to drop a full completed items instead of 2 components separately. That's interesting. So now you're just like, well, here you go. You've got red buff. It's not here's a giant's belt and here's a chain vest. It's you have red buff. Use it. I like that a lot, actually. I think it's more exciting from like a new player perspective to just like have shinier items. Like I think it's actually good design for any casual player, period. And also because it like requires less mental work on new players. Like it's one of the things that I love about auto battlers is basic proficiency. You just get out of the box, click stuff and drag them up. Like super basic proficiency, you're there on an auto battler. I love that. And so like here's a new shiny thing. I love that. Anyway, and beyond that though, I think it actually you can construe it as a further skill test to high level players, where it's like, okay, well, you know what, you've got to play in a way where Static Shiv is not reliable, because guess what, the game's gonna drop rapid fire cannon. It's not dropping just recurve bows and tears anymore. You've got to be more adaptable. Like I really think the super high end gameplay on a game like this is all about adapting. And the more the game tells you, screw you, I am not deterministic, the more skill tests you have. I think it's a really big deal. So I actually love things like this. I think it actually increases the skill of the game, because the less deterministic it is, the more you have to do. You're crazy, like, oh my gosh, you've got to adapt. So I think it's a positive change for the game for actual skill tests. Bug fixes. Some of these are big. Okay, so Spiderlings and Golem now work with Frozen Heart, Kindred, Swain, Karthus, Shen, Vhagar. Cool. Okay, that's good. This is maybe the single... Okay, it's not really. This is one of the biggest changes in the patch. And if I'm reading it properly, the way Graves works right now, he has a range of 1 and an AoE of 2. I think this will make his range 2 and his AoE 4. And if you put 2 RFCs, his range is 4 and his AoE is 8, which is the whole board. Now, Graves has very, very bad tank stats. He is one of the squishiest units in the game. He's a really bad frontliner. But if you give him rapid fire cannon, he can be second line. And if he shoots four hexes, this is absurd damage. Carry Graves is now a real comp, but you must find rapid fire cannon. This is strong. This is really strong. Try this. Frozen Art bug fix, no longer apply too many slows when stacked. Some item slots not showing up. This is a nice change where the win in Lose Streak Gold is given at the wrong time. It's supposed to be given when you come into Krugs, not after Krugs, which means you're going to have the right amount of money to like level up or reroll once more or just simply to gain interest. That's valuable. Collision after dying and body blocking is going away. Blitzcrank no longer tries to pull Zephyr targets or assassin targets. He'll understand the AI and the determinism of the game and pull right away. That's pretty meaningful. One thing I want to point out, by the way, is this means, by the way, I want to see this. I am pretty sure that you can screw over Karthus and Brand and Draven players with Zephyr. Put Blitz in the corner or next to the corner, put him one away from the corner, and put a Zephyr next to him. And so when they have the little Volibear trying to take the hook, you Zephyr him, and in comes Brand. Zephyr is underrated. Because now that this bug fix is in, you can Zephyr Blitz pull. In fact, he can do it to himself. You can put Blitz in the corner and just simply give him a Zephyr. Now, of course, that means that you just put your unit on the Zephyr and have him pull the tank, but that means if you shift to one side, he Zephyrs the tank and still pulls the unit. So Blitz with a Zephyr does some interesting things, and you can really target some people. Zephyr Blitz. Try it. Okay. We're 57 minutes in. It's time for the TLDR. Hextech is coming in, and it's going to really hurt people who item stack. If you are in the game, you should be spreading out your item using champions so that you don't all get bombed at once. Pretty big deal here. The new units, they look pretty sweet. You'll see them in game. You're not going to rematch the same player twice in a row, almost ever. That's a cool thing. Overtime mode exists, that there's less draws and things will die. I like that too. The ranked ladder is a little bit different. Player damage is down in the first stage when you're gearing up for Krugs, and it's up after you fight Raptors. Brawler slight nerf. Demon is now more of a generation of mana talent than a mana burning talent. Slight buffs to Ninja overall, and stay tuned, there's buffs to Akali and Zed as well. Running one Ninja should be pretty valuable. Small buff to Noble, which is a very good thing. I think Noble is still too weak. Sorcerer 3 going down by 5 AP is a good thing. Wild going up by 2% attack speed per stack I think is still not going to make us go for a while, but it makes 2 Wilds slightly better in the early game. Small buffs to Elise and her Spiderling's attack speed. Small nerfs to Kha'zix spell damage. And Vayne technically doing a bit more damage. This is basically... This change basically is only good if Vayne is going for a Rage Blade. AP does affect the spell, and the bigger the spell is, the more the AP matters. So AP Vayne, I want to see it. Small nerf to Braum, small buff to Lissandra, moderate nerf to Lulu, big buff to Zed. We're going to see more Zed, we should see less Lulus. A lot of champions, much like Aatrox, are not going to whiff their abilities. There's no targets in range. This is going to be a big deal. It's going to change a lot of champion balance. There's going to be a lot of moving parts in this patch. This is probably the biggest patch to date because of things like this. Evelyn better as well. Katarina now has a real champion auto-attack DPS. That's a good start. Kennen no longer whiffs his ult. Same changes here. But with the other ninjas getting buffed, Kennen maybe don't run him every single game. Maybe you still do. There's Akali's 10 damage. Brand is getting a pretty moderate sized buff, actually. First ult comes in sooner, and the ult does more damage. Brand carry is going to be a real thing. Stay tuned for that. Cho is getting a really, really big nerf when you combine with the 3 Sork nerf, with the Chogath nerf, with the Brawler 4 nerf. It's a pretty big hit to void Brawler Sork, which was the #1 strat in the game. I think, though, with everyone hopping off Chogath, you can safely still run a void Brawler Sork and you'll be fine. I think it's still a viable strategy. Karthus' second ult is going to be a lot slower. Kale's attack speed and MF is stronger. I really want to see 80 mana MFs take over some teamfight. I think she's going to be very, very good now. Karthus and Kale needed this. Look out for MF. I think she's really good. Hush now prevents mana generation instead of silencing you, which is going to be a stronger effect overall. The actual proc rate is down slightly, but it's going to be very, very strong still. Small buff to Infinity Edge. Biggest fan of that is Rengar, also Akali. But any RFC user, like a Draven, is going to care about this. Graves the same, because, hey, it feels really good to get more crits and do more damage with them. So this is a strict buff to IE. That should feel pretty good. Onyx Spark now stacks. I am curious if 4 Spark is a real comp. I don't know if it is, but maybe it is. Who knows? Basically, I think what it is, if you're playing 6 Nobles or 6 Knights for some reason, Onyx Spark is your damage output. Good luck with that. Much needed Locket buff is a good thing. Merlanomicon burn is much slower over more time. Same with red buff. It is less DPS, but over more time. I think these are generally nerfs to these items, and we'll see them less. Redemption has 500 more health. Because we see them less, you're going to see healing items be stronger. Static Shiv, less total damage. Warmogs is weaker when the dragon's carrying it. Guardian Angel now properly removes grievous wounds and is also nerfed to 500 health from 800 health, which means you are it's not as strong, and it's not countered by Morellos, which means we're going to see less Morellos. Big change. Sometimes full items come out from things more often. I think this is a cool thing. Looking forward to how this plays out. I think it's a cool stuff. Bunch of bug fixes. The one that I care about, though, is Graves now gains range with rapid fire cannon, which means the pellets gain range as well, and that's going to be a pretty big deal. I'm not sure for certain if it's going to double the pellet range from 2 to 4, or simply add 1 range off of his base range, and that means the pellet range goes from 2 to 3. I'm not certain which one's true, but I can really see carry Graves being a very big deal in this patch. That's it for the patch rundown. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.